You are living your life inside a cage, not one made of steel or stone, one made of something far more powerful, something invisible, something that knows your name, knows your dreams, knows exactly how big you could become, and uses that knowledge against you every single day. That cage is fear. And here's what nobody tells you about it. The door was never locked. It was never even closed. You've been sitting inside it voluntarily, choosing it, returning to it every time the world outside got too real, too uncertain, too demanding of the version of you that you haven't become yet. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something that changes everything. Not just what fear is, but what it's been stealing from you, specifically, quietly, for years. But first, I want to ask you something real. Think about the one thing you've wanted most in your life, the career, the relationship, the business, the version of yourself you can see so clearly in your mind. Now ask yourself honestly, is fear the reason it's still just a vision? If that question just hits somewhere deep, write it in the comments. You're not alone. This channel exists for exactly this conversation, for people who are done being held back by something they can't even see. If that's you, subscribe. We do this every week. Now let's go deeper. Fear is not your enemy. That's the first thing you need to understand. Fear is ancient. It is wired into every human nervous system as a survival mechanism built over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. When your ancestors heard a sound in the darkness, fear kept them alive. It sharpened their senses. It flooded their body with adrenaline and made them faster, stronger, more alert. Fear was never designed to destroy you. It was designed to protect you. The problem is that your brain cannot tell the difference between a predator in the darkness and a conversation that might go badly, between a physical threat and the possibility of public failure, between actual danger and the discomfort of beginning something new. Your nervous system fires the same alarm for all of it. And because the alarm feels real, because it lives in your body, in your chest, in your throat, in the tightness behind your eyes, you treat it as truth. You treat the feeling of fear as evidence that you shouldn't move. And that is where your life starts to shrink. Because every time you obey fear, every time you pull back from the conversation, delay the decision, avoid the risk, silence the idea, your brain records that avoidance as the correct response. It learns that the threat was real. It makes the fear bigger next time, more convincing, more physical, more impossible to argue with. This is why people wake up at 35, at 40, at 50, and realize they have spent decades becoming experts at avoiding the very things that would have set them free. Not because they were weak, not because they lacked intelligence or talent or desire, but because they followed the alarm every single time, without questioning it, without ever asking, is this fear protecting me or is it imprisoning me? That distinction is everything. There's a version of fear that is useful, the kind that tells you not to step into traffic, not to trust someone who has already shown you who they are, not to make a financial decision in a state of pure emotion. That fear deserves your attention. But there is another version, the kind that shows up every time you're about to grow, every time you're standing at the edge of your current identity, looking into the territory of who you could become. That fear has a different name. It's called resistance. And it is not there to protect you. It is there to keep you the same. Because your mind, your ego, your nervous system, they are deeply biologically invested in keeping you exactly as you are. Familiar, known, safe. Growth requires becoming someone you have never been, and that process, by definition, will feel dangerous to a mind that is wired for survival and repetition. So the fear you feel before the difficult conversation, that's resistance, not danger. The fear you feel before launching the business, before leaving the job that's slowly hollowing you out, before committing fully to the relationship or the goal or the discipline that your life actually requires, that is not a warning. That is a signal that you are standing at the exact edge where your life could change. Most people turn back at that edge every time. They call it being realistic. They call it patience. They call it waiting for the right moment. But the right moment never comes, because the right moment is built, not found. It is built by the person who felt the fear and moved anyway. This is the mindset shift that separates the people who transform their lives from the people who spend their lives talking about transformation. It is not the absence of fear. It is the decision, made consciously, repeatedly, uncomfortably, to act in the presence of it. The most disciplined people you admire are not fearless. They are fear familiar. They have stood at that edge so many times that they recognize it. They feel the tightness in their chest, and they think, good, this means I'm in the right place. This means I'm about to grow. This means the next version of me is directly on the other side of this moment. That reframe is not naive optimism. It is strategic. It is the deliberate rewiring of a nervous system that was built for a world that no longer exists. You are not running from predators. You are building a life, and building requires risk, and risk produces fear. And fear, faced consistently, produces the one thing that changes everything. Courage is not a personality trait you either have or don't have. Courage is a practice. It is the repeated decision to move through discomfort towards purpose. And every single time you make that decision, every time you make the call, take the step, say the thing, begin the work, you deposit something into an account inside yourself, an account called self-trust. And self-trust is what fear has been bankrupting for years. Every time you avoided the thing, you made a withdrawal. You told yourself, without words, just behavior, that you could not handle what was on the other side, that you needed protection from your own life. And over time, that story became your identity. Not because it was true, because you repeated it. You can write a different story, starting now. Not by eliminating fear, that is not the goal and it is not possible, but by changing your relationship with it, by deciding that fear is information, not instruction, by deciding that discomfort is the price of growth and that you are willing to pay it, by deciding that the life waiting for you on the other side of your fear is worth more than the comfort of the cage you've been living in. You already know what you need to do. You have known longer than you want to admit. The path forward is not hidden. It is guarded by the thing we've been talking about for the last 5 minutes. The question is never whether you feel fear. The question is whether you move anyway. That movement, however small, however imperfect, however terrifying, is where your real life begins. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when the conditions are perfect and the fear has somehow disappeared. Now, afraid, moving. That is how you kill your fear. Not by destroying it, but by refusing to obey it.